Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating story. A tech titan's fall from grace and its, epic fight to get back on top.
So check this out. It's really a tale of two numbers. On one hand, you've got this massive stamp of approval from the government, a whopping $8.5 billion in CHIPS Act subsidies. But then, on the other hand, you look at the market and, the stock price is hitting a 14-year low. So you got to ask, right? How does a tech giant end up here, holding this huge check while its value is just plummeting? Let's get into it.
But to really get the fall, you first have to appreciate just how high up they were. For decades, Intel Inside wasn't just some sticker on your laptop, it was a rock-solid guarantee of dominance.
And this timeline, wow, it just shows you how total that dominance really was. I mean, think about it. Back in the 80s, their 386 chip basically powered the entire PC revolution. Then the 90s, you had the legendary Wintel dynasty with Microsoft. Through the 2000s, they had a stranglehold on the market, like 70 to 80% of all CPUs. And by the 2010s, they were the biggest pure-play semiconductor company in the world. For more than 20 years, their innovation engine just felt unstoppable, and it was all thanks to this incredibly powerful business model.
So what was their secret sauce? Well, as their former CEO, Andy Grove, put it, it was all about this vertical alignment. They were what's called an integrated device manufacturer, or IDM for short. And what that means is they did everything. They designed their own unique chips, and then they built those chips in their own exclusive factories. This end-to-end control, it gave them this immense advantage in both performance and cost. It's how they just crushed the competition. But here's the irony. Grove also famously warned that industries always face what he called strategic inflection points, these fundamental shifts that can completely destroy even the biggest giants. And Intel, the company that was built on navigating these exact points, well, they were about to miss a few huge ones. They just failed to see the ground shifting right under their feet.
And that blindness, it really came down to three critical misses. Intel was so laser-focused on protecting its kingdom, the PC market, that it just completely missed three world-changing trends barreling down the road: the mobile revolution, the GPU gold rush, and of course, the AI tsunami.
Okay, so the first and probably most famous miss, the iPhone. You can hear the regret in former CEO Paul Otellini's voice here. Apple actually came to them, but the price they offered, it was below what Intel figured it would cost to make the chip. He famously said, "I couldn't see it." And just like that, they passed. They totally underestimated how huge the mobile market would become, and they basically held the door wide open for competitors like Qualcomm, who were using ARM's power-efficient designs to come in and just completely dominate the space.
Next up, they made this huge error in judgment about GPUs. They looked at the graphics processing unit and thought, that's a niche thing for gamers. It's just a little sidekick to our all-powerful CPU, the main brain of the computer. What they didn't see, what they completely missed, was that the GPU's special trick, its ability to handle thousands of calculations all at once, something called parallel processing, was going to become the literal engine of the entire AI revolution. And that mistake let NVIDIA just run away with the whole market.
And speaking of AI, you won't believe this. They reportedly missed another monster opportunity. Back in 2017, there was this little upstart research lab called OpenAI looking for money. Apparently, Intel passed. Microsoft, on the other hand, they saw something. They jumped in with $1 billion, a move that, let's be honest, looks absolutely genius today.
So look, these weren't just a series of unlucky breaks. No way. They were actually symptoms of a much deeper problem that was brewing inside the company. The very model that had made Intel so great, that fortress of vertical integration, was starting to become its biggest liability.
Yeah, that IDM model, that vertical power they had, it turned into a classic double-edged sword. While their competitors, like AMD, were getting smart and nimble, focusing on brilliant chip design and then outsourcing the super expensive manufacturing part to specialists like TSMC in Taiwan, Intel was still trying to do everything itself. And the high costs and the sheer inflexibility of that model just started to choke off innovation and slow them right down.
And when you look at analyses of their internal operations, you can see just how deep these problems went.
You had things like hot lots, rushed batches of chips, being pushed through their factories 2 to 3 times more often than their peers, just wrecking the workflow. Get this, for one chip, it took them 12 design revisions or steppings to get it right. AMD needed just 3. Their test times were way longer, and they created dozens and dozens of slightly different versions of the same product, which just added this massive layer of complexity and cost. It was really a culture of inefficiency, totally hidden for years by their market dominance.
All right, so fast forward to 2021, and a familiar face returns to try and save the day. Engineer turned CEO Pat Gelsinger comes back to Intel with, let's face it, a pretty daunting mission. Fix this broken giant.
And Gelsinger's diagnosis was crystal clear. He said the company was drowning in a decade of technical debt. And this is such a great concept. It's basically the price you eventually pay for choosing the easy short-term fix, like, say, focusing only on hitting your quarterly numbers instead of making the harder but much better long-term investments in your core technology.
Just like analyst Ben Bajarin says here, Gelsinger basically inherited what might be the largest technical debt paydown in corporate history. So what was his solution? A total technology-first turnaround. Spend whatever it takes to catch up, no matter how much it hurts in the short term. A painful but totally necessary process.
And that necessary pain has been incredibly real. To fund these huge investments in brand new factories, Intel announced layoffs in 2024 that would affect around 20,000 employees. It's a really painful move, but it's aimed at trying to get that financial discipline back.
And this chart, this just shows you the staggering, mind-boggling scale of the challenge Gelsinger is up against. I mean, look at this. While Intel's market value is basically flatlined over the last decade or so, its old rivals have just shot past them into the stratosphere. NVIDIA has exploded to over $2 trillion. And the manufacturer, TSMC, over $800 billion? The world completely changed, and for a critical period, Intel just stood still.
So where does that leave Intel today? Is there a road to redemption? Can this new strategy actually rebuild a fallen empire? The company is now betting its entire future on a massive plan they call IDM 2.0. Okay, so this plan basically has 2 big parts. First, they need to get their mojo back and revitalize their own products. But second, and this is a huge shift, they're opening up their super expensive factories to build chips for other companies. They want to become a foundry, just like TSMC, and they'll even build chips for their competitors. But the challenge is immense. Their main PC business is under a lot of pressure, and their data center and AI group is still losing ground. And man, the competition out there has never been more fierce. The whole industry has gone horizontal. You've got TSMC, who completely dominates manufacturing. You've got AMD, who is just out-innovating them on CPU design. ARM's architecture is the undisputed king of mobile, and it's now pushing hard into PCs. And then there's NVIDIA, which basically owns the entire AI space with its killer combo of GPUs and software. Each one is an absolute master of its own layer.
And then, in what could be a stunning final chapter to this whole saga, there are recent reports that Qualcomm, the very company that rose to power by winning the mobile market that Intel ignored, is now in talks for a potential acquisition of the former Titan. I mean, can you imagine? The student, now a giant itself, thinking about buying the old master.
Which leaves us with this one last, really provocative thought. Intel literally built the modern computer industry on this vertical, do-it-all, integrated model. But in a world that is now completely shifted to specialized, horizontal competitors, a world that, ironically, Intel helped create, can a vertical giant like that actually rebuild itself to survive? That is the multi-billion-dollar question.